Near the terrorists who grew up in a suburb around here. I wanna know who, I wanna know who, I wanna know who is the terrorist? I wanna know who, I wanna know who, I wanna know who.
My name is Micah Turner. I'm a sergeant in the United States Army. I deserted my unit and have been protesting the war ever since.
Sweet. Do you know Occupy the Roads has now got Occupy Armed Forces have an RV and they're following us? You should come on.
No, I don't know that, but I have to turn myself in today. It's my last day before the consequences. I would be dropped from my unit, and I know that that my first sergeant and my commander are going to try and help me through this process, even though I've been blatant about my feelings towards the war. So
Wow.
I'm turning myself in today, right after this event.
And so what does that mean? Can they take you to prison?
Yeah, they'll put me in prison probably about 6 to 9 months for dissenting. But you know, the right thing to do isn't always the easy thing to do. Sometimes it's the only thing to do.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, if you don't go to jail and you want to join us, I think you should come on board.
I wanna know who is the terrorist?
My name's Nicole, and this is my husband, Jules.
Jules. Okay, and here we have Mud, who I met at the DC.
Was this like a
I'm
moving
filming.
camera?
Yeah.
We're all newfangled technology.
Because when we go on Skype later, we're going to have Mike in the group. So if you have anything to say to the folks in the U.S.
I'm a Vietnam Vets Against the War, Old School Sappers, Toronto.
Sweet.
Chris is a former paratrooper, Afghan vet. Left the Army after 5 years because I don't agree with it. So everybody down in the States, keep resisting, doing the right thing.
How many tours did you do?
I did 15 months
15
in
months.
Afghanistan. Yeah.
And Nicole, were you?
I was not in the Army.
She
Okay.
did one tour with me in Canada.
We're still on it. Rough
Okay.
ride.
Moving from Vancouver to Montreal, broke as hell, picking up cigarette butts to smoke the rest of them, unemployment, fucking
Sponsorship case,
refugee case. She's pretty much a veteran.
Wow.
Welfare.
I could say that
Employment
before
assistance.
Jules and I met, I was a full-time anti-war activist, and the
Oh,
first
you were?
time that I spoke publicly, I was 15 years old, and the U.S. had just begun their invasion of Afghanistan. And I graduated high school early so that I could go and protest the invasion of Iraq in Vancouver, Seattle, and Philadelphia. I was part of like this little peace circle with my parents in Boston the night before the invasion, and I never ever thought that that was going to lead me to marrying a veteran, ever.
So what made you decide? You did 15 months, and then what was the trigger for you?
The trigger, I wouldn't say there was like one definite trigger. I think it was like a gradual disillusionment with the whole thing, but I wouldn't say I had like a real solid analysis of why, you know, I'm against this. There was no real deep thinking in it. It was more of like emotional decision, you know, and one thing led to another. You know, it could have been anything at first that started me on this path, but it was probably just these like prolonged 1 month excursions into the wilderness kind of deals. You know, like these 30-day missions, and these kind of like police actions where we'd go into villages and we'd go intimidate people and ask them, you know, where's the Taliban, blah blah blah, and this kind of crap. You know, like being a cop, and here I am, like a kid from LA, right? I grew up in Los Angeles, and I kind of like witnessed that firsthand of like police intimidation on regular folks, and here I was like some 17-year-old kid telling this like 50-year-old grown-ass man in his own country trying to, you know, intimidate this guy in front of his family. Man, who the fuck am I? I'm just like 17-year-old kid, and I feel like such an idiot being like in another country doing that. We've been in firefights, and one time my mortar team had been shelling this area where my platoon was getting in a heavy firefight, and a civilian lady and her son had been killed by our mortars. So that was probably another strong thing that made me come to the decision I made. But it was never like anything gradual. There was never any point where I just said, yeah, I'm gonna go AWOL.
How did you get in the Army? What was the decision?
I volunteered for the Army, actually. Like I said earlier, that I was like 16 and I protested the war in Iraq. I think I was with some student group in my high school that protested the war in Iraq, and I didn't really have like solid political opinions back then. It was just kind of, you know, I don't agree with this government. When I was graduating high school, I had really, really poor grades, and I was on the verge of doing another year of high school because I was failing all my classes. I was just a shitty student, you know, and that's my fault. I probably should have studied more, but...
Were you bored?
I quit high school. Hey, listen to bro here talk. Everything in Vietnam, what do you say in spades?
Yeah, it's just a shitty...
Well, and I'm curious about the education system because I know that they recruit out of school, and I know that the schools, it does, yeah, and it's annoying and bothersome to me.
Recruiter's assistant.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So you know.
Simple. You go to the high school and you say, I need the address and names and phone numbers of all your high school juniors and seniors, and then you get. We used to use a certain software program called ARIS, and you do these mass mail merge. So it sucked. It would take like 3 or 4 days. You type in thousands and thousands of names because it's everybody 16 or 17 years old in the local area, and then just make, you know, one generalized letter.
I'll bet you
Each one seems specific to the person, but really it's just the same letter, but you're adding a name to it. It says, we've been reviewing your records, and we find that you would have very many qualities that would help you find a career in the U.S. Army.
Oh yeah,
And it's
for sure.
it's really simple, and all you got to do is get a kid to come in and take the ASVAB test, and the test is from 0 to 90. As long as you get over a 30 on it, there's a job somewhere in the Army for you. So it's like,
And I was going to say, I'll bet you they aren't in the richy areas,
Oh, of course
in the
not.
schools,
No,
that they're doing these.
Because they give you a load of bullshit, right? Because it's like, what are my options for the future? I have like a handful of friends that work at McDonald's. I have a handful of friends selling dope, and then I like, what is my future? Am I gonna be fucking flipping burgers or whatever?
Yeah.
So here comes these guys in these like fancy uniforms, nice shiny medals and shit, and they tell you, you got what it takes.
you could be a hero.
You got
too.
what it takes, blah, 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 and you can do this, and you know what, if you really want to go to school, we got this Montgomery GI Bill, etc., etc., and I'm like, man, this is the perfect fucking opportunity. Why not? Why shouldn't I take this opportunity? And it's not to use that as an excuse, you know, like the folly of youth, but you are an impressionable, like, 17-year-old kid who doesn't have any real life skills. I can't fix a fucking car. I can't build a fucking house, you know, but I can sure as hell pull a trigger, or, you know.
People will say, you know, the big argument is, well, you volunteered, and the big strength around the Vietnam resistance was the draft. But what people don't understand, or what people fail to maybe notice, is that it's basically an economic draft now. So if you ask people, hey, what would you go to school for, what you really wanted to go to school for, to so many people it's just an impossibility because money is the fundamental issue.
Chris, we work in the trades, right? Where we work on high-rise buildings, and
You and Chris? This is
Yeah.
Chris there? Okay, Chris right
and
there.
if someone had told me at 16, 17 years old, you could make $35 to $40 an hour doing that, I would have been fucking building high-rises.
Yeah, you would have been doing rebar.
What's the salary for people on a tour in the United States right now?
I don't know. I think for a specialist,
We made about
35 to 40,000 a year.
Yeah, and I was 15. We made 40 grand, and I was
Tax-free.
15 months.
tax-free.
But I mean, again, you don't have any expenses while you're gone, so you come back to 40 G's at once. That's a down payment for a house.
Yeah.
That's a car up front and a down payment for a house.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys, like, you get caught up living like that. They're trying to keep their families going and shit.
Right.
All your
A
life's
lot of
problems
guys-
solved, one deployment.
Right.
You know, like.
But then do they tell you that you can't get out? What's a contract?
Depends on how long you join for. It could
Oh,
be
so you
anywhere-
have the option when
could be
you
anywhere
sign?
from 3 to 6 years
How
or
long
whatever.
did you guys join for?
Well, technically,
2000
there's something you gotta
2005
understand
to
too. Though.
2008.
Technically, any contract you sign, even if it's a 2-year contract, is technically 8 years. 2 years of it are the active duty service, and then the other 6, when you're back home, is called involuntary ready reserve, IR.
We were just talking a little while ago about people who have done 4, 5, 6 deployments. And these aren't like short little stints where you're just like sitting on a base. Like this is 12, 15 months.
Yeah, like our missions that back then we'd leave the base for 40 days on end. You live in trucks and just drive from town to town, sleep in the woods and shit. was horrible. But it was like this 2-day in-between period. It's like you just get out of the field and then like pack up, guys, get some showers. We're gonna leave again for another 30. That was when the commander came. He's like, by the way, we're extended another 90 days.
So 15 months, and you saw lots, I would imagine.
I'd
while
say,
you were over there.
I'd say a lot. I saw lots. Me and Chris were in like 3 or 4 different provinces during our deployment.
Yeah.
We were in a cavalry.
We were in the same unit.
Yeah, we were.
Oh, okay.
He was actually. I was a mortar guy, right? We were both infantry, but my weapon specialization was in the mortars, and he was 11 Bravo, I was 11 Charlie. Those are just designations for like what kind of weapons you use or whatever.
Okay.
They're both infantry, and during our tour there, we went from like Paktika Province, Gardez Province, Ghazni Province.
Gardez was a district. We drove through Kabul at one point.
Multiple bases, a shitload of bases we were at, and we were a roving kind of company.
Because when we went to Afghanistan, it was 2007 into 2008. So at that time, because in 2006, the whole war effort was Iraq. We had 120,000 people in Iraq. We had 20,000 in Afghanistan.
Shoes on, girl.
When me and him got deployed, that was part of the problem. The people we relieved in early 2007, we relieved them, and then the Pentagon realized, shit, we can't keep up with our deployment schedules without screwing somebody. So most of the guys had made it back home to their wives and kids and shit, and then they got told, no, get on a bird, you're going right back to where you came from. So then our unit our unit didn't have a mission then. So they kicked us inland, and we were in the deserts for the first 6 months. Our first part of the deployment was kind of boring. Like, we did a lot of long missions, occasional road bomb. Maybe somebody would fire a rocket at you, like one rocket. But then, like, once the summertime hit, though,
that's when more people died.
Yeah, because the summertime when we were still in the deserts, there was bombs. Every mission we were going on, there was IEDs happening. But then when they moved us from Paktika Province, we were in western Paktika Province, and they moved us right to the Pakistani border in Paktia, right on the eastern edge. Once we hit the elevation and the mountains, you start getting hit twice every 2 days, every 3 days.
That's when we
You're like sitting ducks, aren't you? Really?
Usually you're in a low point in the valley, and there's mountains. You have high ground over
and they know the terrain,
they
right?
just fire right in.
And here we are. When we dig through some of the bodies, right? Like after a firefight, you got to do BDA, battle damage assessment, and you check some of the bodies of the enemy KIA. I looked through some of the bags, right? And one guy, he had no food except for a box of fucking candy, Peeps. This guy's been climbing mountains for days, probably with no sleep, and he's eating Peeps.
Oh my god.
And here I am on this fucking 30-day mission, bitching about fucking, I don't have the right MREs, and all these other guys are like, it's cold, I'm cold.
We don't have any Gatorade.
And here is this fucking grizzled guy that we killed.
They're fighting you with everything they got, and it's like,
and he's living on fucking
it back
Peeps.
home. That's what changed my view on the war is like you're taking part in killing people that have more, like, not to say more balls than you, but like you're in their backyard.
Yeah.
They don't have any option left. Here God, baby, I hope I make it back home to you. I hope, if I can only see the ocean again and go surfing, like. But these poor when you leave, they're still living it, and the same shit. Like, every time, like when we relieved our unit. Or when we relieved the unit we had to relieve, they're warning us about this, that, blah, 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 blah. And then all of our leaders say, well, we're not going to take their approach. We're going to do it a different way. And these poor people that are stuck, every year they got to deal with a new band of resident idiots. Like the new renegade armed warlords. Like, all right, great. What's this guy going to say?
Here's this young-ass kid, baby face. I'll give you a well. I'll build a school, this and that, and they're like,
we'll make you powerful. We'll make you powerful.
Yes. What about the last fucking 21-year-old lieutenant from last year? Where did he go? Is he still here? And what about the other 21-year-old?
He got a Pentagon job now.
Exactly. Here's these chiefs or tribal leaders who are like, yeah, that's what the last guys told us.
Yeah. Well, and that's why it's going to be interesting to talk to Micah later, because that's what he did, was put out the propaganda and say how great the U.S. Army.
There was times we used PSYOP. One time I recall, one of the captains, which is an officer, right? He's a company commander. Well, at one of these points during the night when they were visiting some random town, I guess he got mad, or as he usually did, and like in his fit of bullshit, laid down his weapon to go scold some troops. Meanwhile, 8 hours later, when they're arriving at their destination at 7 in the morning somewhere else, he realizes, I never brought my rifle with me. Whoops. And this is a captain.
Yeah.
So they hire the resident, not PSYOPs, civil affairs, but the people trained to speak the language and deliver propaganda. They send 2 trucks with speakers through the town saying, we will firebomb your homes if somebody does. Eventually, some like 16-year-old kid comes out with a freaking M4. He's like, here you go. This guy left his freaking body armor on the ground
guys were
somewhere.
walking for
ran
hours.
off to go get some food. Some kid took his knots. Right off his gear. We had to do the same shit. Like, we're gonna firebomb this city unless somebody gives us that back. It's sensitive equipment. Like,
Totally there.
Your wish for you guys, and what would you say to young men and women who are signing up? I mean, what are you guys looking for? Are you all from the United States? What do
Pretty
you want?
much, yeah. She's Canadian, but she has dual citizenship. And he's from New York. He's from Jersey. I'm from LA.
So would you go back? Do you want to be back in your country, or would you stay here?
I would like to have the right. At this point, I've made a life for myself. I've been here 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, me and him found iron work. Like, some of the first jobs I had, we were working a tire repair factory.
No fucking rights.
And
no
then we were
benefits.
selling. We sold meal plans to college students at one point.
Yeah.
We were combat vets. When iron work came my way, and it was like, it's not solving all your problems, but it's still like 35, 40 bucks an hour. You know, you're a union with benefits, this and that. Not to mention people you meet and everything else. Like, I've created a life for myself here. I can right to visit my family without getting arrested, though.
And where's your family, Chris?
All in New Jersey and North Carolina.
Okay. And for you, would you go back, do you think?
I
Or
don't
just-
know.
or just the freedom
just like
to-
Chris said, I started a life for myself. Like, me and Nicole are married. I really like the relationships that I've built here. I mean, there's a lot of family and a lot of things that I left behind that I would love to. I'd love to be with my family again. But the fact of the matter is, there's nothing left for me there. Everything that I've built as an adult outside of the Army is in Canada. In the Army, I was just
Your
a fucking kid.
kids.
I didn't know how to do my taxes in the Army. I just, you know, like, I didn't know how to do anything in the Army.
But I think it's safe to say that I think all of us really do have the States in our hearts in a lot of ways. I mean, here we are, we're talking about American politics and we're talking about what's happening there because it matters to us, and it's a big deal when we see things going to shit in our homes. And
True.
you know, people always ask me, which country do you like better? Because I've been raised in both countries, and I kind of feel like it's an unfair question because I love the United States, I love the history, I love the people, I love, you know, so many different aspects of it. But when you see it just, in George Carlin's terms, going down the tubes badly, it's hard not to like look to some method of jumping ship and taking care of yourself and your family, which is hence, you know, Canada.
They call it the American dream because you got to be asleep to believe it.
Yeah, another George Carlin quote.
What's your impression of the Canadian political system, or do you follow it?
They better watch out before
they
they
better
follow.
get their act
They
right.
keep following America down the path they're going.
Canadian political and social
They better
fabric
get
right
their
now
act
is
right.
being held together with duct tape,
I mean,
thanks to the conservative government.